Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I think we will go ahead and kick off. It is just at the top of the hour. So thank you very much for those of you who have joined. We're going to be taking a look at the new edition of the official guide to PTE Academic with an emphasis on teachers. We have about 45 minutes to walk through the presentation, and then there'll be plenty of time for your questions at the end. So please feel free to drop those in and we'll pick them up towards the end. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Joanne Sale, who is going to lead us through this presentation today. Thank you very much. And Joe, whenever you're ready, I think we're looking at your screen as well.
Sorry, I'm back. My computer decided to die there for a second. I'm back. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome today. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited that so many of you showed up and looking at the chat from so many different places all around the world. So that's really exciting. And we're really happy to be able to share some news with you today about the official guide to PTE Academic. So just to get started, just a little bit of housekeeping before we start today. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded, and within a week after the event today, you'll be able to access the recording. There is quite a bit of information, so if you don't manage to get notes or you're watching on your phone, you'll be able to access the recording afterwards and rewatch any bits that you want to see again. You'll also get a certificate with your name on it and a virtual goodie bag, which will have some little bits and pieces in it around the guide, some samples, some little bits for you to have a look through in your own time. So that's really exciting. Oops. What are we going to see today? So we're going to start by talking about PTE Academic a little bit and what is essential test prep for it. We're going to look at the challenges that teachers face, because we know that there are a lot of challenges in test prep anyway, but especially nowadays, right? So we'll be looking at that a little bit. Then we're going to go diving into the official guide. We'll look at what it contains, what it has for you, and then we'll go in and see some sneak previews of some really exciting stuff. We'll talk about some of the tools that it has for lesson planning and teaching. And at the end, we'll have a question and answer session. So there will be a few points where I'll ask a few questions, and if you want to participate, that'd be really good. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any general questions around anything that you hear, if you can just pop them in the chat, there'll be some time at the end and we'll try to get through as many of those questions at the end as we can. Okay, so this is what we're going to see today. Before we start, just a little bit about me. So I am a product manager for Pearson for test prep, and I manage all the courseware and all the materials related to everything for Pearson Tests of English. That's Pearson Test of Academic and also Pearson English International Certificate. So today we're talking about PTE Academic. Worked at Pearson for about 7 years, and prior to that I lived in Mexico for 15 years. Was a teacher trainer and a freelance editor. So I do know what it's like to be a teacher and to be in the classroom. So again, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on things as we go through and any questions that you have. Okay, so before we get started then, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about you. I can see where you're from a little bit. Rochelle, did you have some questions?
Yes, I do. I'm about to launch a poll. There are 2 very short questions, and the poll is now in progress, so everyone should see it. We just want to know what your level of familiarity is with PTE. So I'll leave the poll open for about 30 seconds. And I should also mention we are streaming on Facebook Live as well. So for those of you who are joining us from Facebook, thank you very much. You're very welcome. Okay, we've got almost half of participants who have voted so far. We're just over 250. And I'm going to close the poll in about 10 seconds. So final answers here. Okay, we've got a few more coming in. And Joe, I think you'll be really curious to see the results here. So I'm excited to reveal these.
Yeah, I'm looking at them on my
Oh, marvelous.
Yeah.
Okay, I am closing the poll. Let's see what we have.
Okay, so that's really good to know, actually. So a lot of you are not currently teaching PTE Academic. I'm not sure if that's because you're not currently teaching or because you haven't taught PTE Academic before. And I can see a lot of you work for PLS or for institutions as well, schools or universities, that kind of thing. So we'll be trying to kind of cover a little bit of everything today. And there is some information in here for people who maybe are not so familiar with PTE Academic as well. So you'll be able to get some ideas of where you can go to and what you can do to start down that pathway of getting familiar with it. Great. Okay, so I'm showing my screen, right, Retell?
Yes, that is correct. We can still see Tell Me
Sorry.
About You.
Got to be sure we don't have any technical problems today, so I'll have to ask. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to talk first about preparing students for PTE Academic. What does this mean? What are the things that students need when they're preparing for this test? So first of all, just a little recap or a bit of background for people who aren't that familiar with PTE Academic. It is a 4 skills test, so that's reading, writing, listening and speaking. It's a 3-hour test and it's all delivered by computer. So there's no face-to-face component in this test, which means that, as you can imagine, it's quite an intense experience, actually. All the 4 skills integrated throughout the different tasks. 3 hours is a long time with 1 break in the middle, and it is all computer-based. So we'll talk a lot today around what that implies for the test taker and for the teacher as well, in terms of the test prep that you need to have and what it needs to include. So it's a test that people take and use for study abroad or migration purposes, predominantly to English-speaking countries. So you've got a list there: UK, Australia, Canada, US and New Zealand, while test takers literally take the test all over the world, which is really nice to see today that there's lots of teachers from all over the world too. So very, very global. It requires test takers to have really, really good on-screen test management skills. And again, we'll talk about this a bit more in more detail, but it's not only having perfect English or good English to do this test. There's a number of things that you need to be able to do in order to manage the test as well. You're not tested on those things, but you need to have those skills to do the test. Like I said, it's 4 skills and all those skills are integrated and they're very much presented in a real world use kind of way. So these are English academic skills at a very certain level that you would be able to do different things in the real world with them. It uses authentic items in an academic context, so it's all authentic material, real stuff that you would get in the real world. It's a reliable test and it's very fast scoring. You can see an example of the score report there. You get your test results through pretty quickly. So I have a question for you. What do test takers generally need from prep for high stakes computer-based assessments? So it could be for PTE Academic or any other kind of similar test, something like a IELTS test or a Cambridge Suite test. What do test takers need from their prep for those kinds of assessments? If you could just pop some ideas into the chat, I'll give you a couple of minutes. I'd really like to hear your thoughts.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Joe. I've just noticed we have a couple comments around how clearly we can see the slides. So from my perspective, it looks like the slides are coming in, and just to flag that maybe they're not perhaps as clear. How is it looking on your screen, Joe?
Yeah, it looks fine. I can't actually see what I'm presenting, but it seems to be sharing fine.
Can I just double check with our other panelist how it's viewing?
In the meantime, there's a lot of things coming in.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine on my end, guys.
Thanks, Mel. Okay, so for those of you who are having issues, maybe it's just a blurry screen.
Yeah. Okay, so familiarity with testing environment, working on a PC, strategies, simulation with testing, so that authentic practice as you would get it in the test format. Familiar with the kinds of questions asked? Yeah, absolutely. Listening and reading, practice, practice, practice. Test requirements, knowledge of timing. Yeah, very important. This is a test where very much the timing, it takes a little bit, how much time you have for each task, and it can be quite difficult sometimes to get your responses in. Being able to do a mock test, yeah, before the official one, time management, strategy, so lots of different things. So this is very similar to any other of those tests that I mentioned, in that you need to have all of those things, but there are some very specific things to PTA as well. So I'd just like to walk through a couple of those. So test takers need, for PTE Academic, to generally and usually to achieve a very specific school goal. So for some of the high assessment tests, you may get a band or you may get a level that you want to achieve. And generally, test takers are just looking for that specific band or level. Here, test takers are generally looking for a very specific score, depending on what they want to use the test for. So if it's for a visa application or for entrance to university, those institutions might ask for a particular score or very thin score band in order to be accepted. So that's something very, very specific to PTA. They need to be able to make progress in their own specific areas of weakness. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is 4 skills integrated, it's other skills as well, and it's a 3-hour test. So people will have very different approaches, backgrounds, learning experiences that they bring to the prep for the test, and will need to hone those skills and improve them in very different places sometimes. They need to be able to identify their strengths of weakness and the areas of weakness and their strengths as well. The teacher, we'll talk about how the teacher can help them, but it really does need to be personal. They need flexible materials that they can adapt to all of those strengths and weaknesses. They need to know how to create a study plan that works for them. And not everybody who comes to PTE Academic as a test necessarily has an academic background. So this is something that is very, very important, and students and test takers need to know how to do that for themselves. They need that overarching skill development. So they do need some practice, but not just task type focused practice. Lots of practice with those things that you've mentioned. So the timing, the test management, all of those things, really, really important to get up to speed with those things before they take the test. They do need to widen their skill sets in English. So in order to get that high score that they might be aiming for, they need to improve certain aspects of their English, either to generally improve their level or in specific areas for specific skills. But they do also need academic skills. They need creative and critical thinking skills that maybe in their past studies or whatever they haven't quite honed as much as they could. So that's something else that we need to include. They also need to know about what not to do in the test. And this is it's quite common actually in test prep, that we always focus on what to do, how to do the task type, how to approach the test. Sometimes it's good to look at it the other way and say, with a different kind of point of view, well, actually try to avoid this, or maybe that's not such a good way to approach it. We need authentic practice materials. So like we said, those real world materials with the timing that they would get in the test, all that kind of thing. They need to be able to reflect on their progress and assess it as they go through, so that they're constantly changing their own study plan and what they're focusing on. And they may need help to know when they are ready to take or retake the test and to get the score they need. Sometimes it's difficult to know that on your own. And last but not least, they need to stay motivated. Even though they may need to take the test for a specific reason, as you can imagine, in this test, there's a lot of different things to consider. So they really, really might need some help to stay motivated, stay on track, and stay focused in order to get their goal. So, what are some of the challenges for teachers? So there's two ways to look at this. One is maybe the things that the teacher can help with specifically, and some things that maybe the material can take care of a little bit in terms of supporting the student. So if we look at the teacher first, these are some of there's lots of things that the teacher can do, obviously, but these are some of the key things that I've pulled out that a teacher might want to focus on. So leading their focus, feeding back on their progress, and helping them to identify those areas where they are really strong and where they need to improve is really, really key. And for people who aren't self-studying and have a teacher, that's where they get the benefit, right? The role of a teacher is also very important in helping them to learn and develop those main skills and other skills that they might need to do well in the test. Sometimes it's hard as a learner to see the whole picture. So the teacher is very, very important in kind of laying it out for them and letting them know where there might be gaps that they need to work on. Helping them focus on the skills that will help them. And it's very important here, this part that says in the test and beyond, because these are skills for life. These are 21st century skills. These are things that will help you wherever you live in the world, whatever job you do, whatever, you know, situations you interact in as an adult. These things will generally help you in English. So really, really important to stress that these are not just skills to pass the test. They're skills that really, really can help people beyond the test as well. And the teacher is really important for giving them, again, suggestions on what to study, how much and how often. They may be spending a lot of practice time on something that actually they don't need to, and maybe the teacher can redirect them to something that will be more constructive. And also, again, help them to stay motivated, show them where they're doing well, show them where they're improving, as well as where they need to keep working. So that's a teacher's role, really. And we'll talk a little bit further on about some of the challenges that you might face. But in terms of the materials, then they really need to also support that independent and group learning. Lots of test takers might spend more time studying on their own than they do with a teacher. There's lots of different combinations of ways people do it. So the materials really need to be able to give that support. And this also relates to classroom teaching and online teaching. If you have a material that really, really can be flexible enough to work in a classroom, work online, or for self-study, that's really, really helpful for the student. They need to be authentic to the test, detailed and useful. They need to include focus on the task type. So we do need to know about the task types, what you have to do in them, the timing for them, all that kind of thing, the skills and the strategies for them, as well as those test management tips. And as I've said, what not to do in the test, just as much as what to do. And lastly, give recurring opportunities for the student on their own to look at their progress, identify how they're doing, and see where they need to set new goals. So another question for you. What challenges do you face as a teacher when preparing students for a test like this? I don't know if any of you have taught PTA. I know some of you haven't. If any of you have taught other high stakes tests, if you could just pop into the chat for me, what are the things that you found challenging? Or with this test, if you haven't taught it, what things could you imagine might be the most challenging? I'll give you a couple of minutes for that. No, cheating is not a possibility with this test. It has very high security and there's absolutely no way to cheat. A lot of material to cover and not much time. A lot of comments there around people having only 2 weeks to prep for the test. Concentration is difficult, yeah, especially when it's test prep and it's stressful, right? Long hours, not being engaging, integration of skills. Not enough time, lack of motivation, and also the language skills that they might not have them up to scratch. Scoring, yeah, I know that's challenging for teachers, right? To understand the scoring, particularly in tests like this that is scored with an algorithm and scored in that way is sometimes it's very complex to understand how those skills and things are tested. Okay, so lots of questions there around level actually, and what is the appropriate level for PTE Academic, what is the level that they need to have to take the test. The answer is there isn't specifically a level. Students with a very low level of English, sort of up to high A2, are generally not going to do very well at the test anyway, no matter what the skills that they have in terms of academic skills or other skills, simply because this is an academic test. So the level is above A2, and B1 upwards. So those students would really, really struggle with this test. But there isn't you don't have to prove your level before you take the test. For students who don't have long to prepare for the test, that is a challenge. And I would my only recommendation would be to work on the skills for the test that we're going to talk about today, but also they will need to spend some time intensively working on the language skills as well. That's something separate. Okay, so let's carry on. Just get to the right, oops. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to move the slides on. Okay, so we're going to come back to those challenges a little bit later and talk about how the official guide can help you with some of those things and a lot of the things that you've mentioned in the chat as well. But right now I want to go on to talk about the official guide for a little while and tell you a little bit more about what it is, what does it have, and how can it help you with your students. So this is brand new. This was launched at the end of 2020. It has a brand new design, and it was a redo of a previous edition that was released really quite a long time ago. So we've looked at the old book. We took a lot of the key guidance that our test takers and teachers told us that they really liked, and we kept it, but we also improved it. We put in a lot of new information around the test management, all those extra skills and skill building that you need for the test. So it's a really, really complete version now of the guide. It's written by PTE experts, and it was reviewed by teachers all over the world. So we had 25 different teachers from 25 different countries actually commenting on the content as it was written and put together. So it really, really, we did take into account a lot of feedback from a lot of different places on what their test takers and teachers need. So that was great. It's shorter, it's more concise, it's really user-friendly. There's a print package available, so you can get your print book, or there's a 100% digital package where you can get an ebook. So I know that's really handy in current circumstances where a lot of us are teaching from home, and you can get a print or a digital package. There's a test taker book and a teacher version with their separate components as well. And with each one you get your book, your digital resources, and your online practice. So how was the official guide designed? Like I said, we had people, teachers from all over the world looking at it while we wrote it, but we also did a lot of research behind it before we even started work. So these are the key things that we decided that we really needed to build in order to make this useful for teachers and test takers, of course. So we wanted it to be flexible, give those tips on the computer-based environment, what it feels like to be in the test room, when you're speaking with the headphones on and the computer and there's someone talking behind you, how do you manage that? They're all things that you have to consider. And actually, if you're a teacher who's not familiar with PTA and you're thinking of teaching it, or you're going to be teaching prep for it, I would strongly recommend that you try and get hold of a scored practice test. That would really, really help you, because it's not until you experience the test yourself you can understand what the students are going through. So that's a really good tip, is if you can get hold of one, do try and do that for yourself. It'll be really eye-opening. So we wanted it to provide practical things, real things that students can do easily, and that teachers can do to help their students improve. Proper, complete familiarization and deep dive into the task type. So everything you need to know about every task type, complete. And support teachers with the skills, with knowing the skills that the students need, basically. So for the test in general, for each section, for each task type, what do I need to teach my students in order for them to, get their goals? And also a lot of pieces that we've built into it, which we're encouraging self-evaluation and readiness checks all the way through. So how does it help you? So considering some of those challenges that you put up, there's all of those are really important, but I've just whittled it down here to 5 key ones that we think are really major things for teachers when facing students in the classroom for prep for PTE Academic, and some solutions that the official guide offers. So the first one is encouraging that targeted wider skill development everything that is aside from the test itself. Also, your familiarity, right, with the test. You mentioned earlier a lot around scoring and the test management, all of those things that as a teacher you need to be really familiar with if you're going to make sure your students understand too. Preparing test takers for the test experience, format, digital or print, and how to make sure these materials can be personalised to what each test taker needs. So some of the solutions that we have from the official guide are that it includes knowledge of the English skills that are tested, as well as all the other things. That's all provided for the teacher. You have everything there that you need to know. Complete set of teaching and planning tools, and a complete picture of what PTE Academic is. We don't have lesson plans as such, but it gives you a really good guide in the resources that we'll talk about in a minute, as to what you need to follow and what you need to get to build a lesson plan for yourself. And that's what makes it flexible as well, so that we give you the tools so that you can build that 2-week course, 5-week course, or 3-month course if that's the case. Authentic content, lots of variety of things to work with, extra tips and lots of guidance. Again, lots of teacher tools, both for digital and print, which you can combine however you want to. And very, very flexible in terms of, again, the time for study and the content that you need to cover. So what do? You get your print or your ebook as a teacher. You get a whole bunch of digital resources that will help you, and you get an online question bank as well. So you get access, as a teacher, you get access to all of the test taker resources, which are a separate bucket, if you like, of things to the ones that the teacher gets, but you get access to all of those. So you get all of the generic things like the audio that they have from the book, you get the answer keys, you get all of the worksheets that they have and all those kind of things, but you get really specific teacher things as well. So these are not all of them. It's just a couple to show you what they look like. But basically you get notes for the worksheets, you get lots of quizzes that you can do in class, you get lots of checklists, you get a really chunky, complete guide to the skills to master for PTE Academic, and lots of lesson ideas as well. So it's really, really complete. There's so much to work with. Honestly, it could be a really, really long course if you wanted to use absolutely everything. You also get a set of animated videos. So these can be used in classroom or for self-study. So you can use them in class and work on specific things that you want the students to look at, or you can assign them for them to be using them at home. So these work quite well as well with the digital online teaching, either for when you have teaching time or for the students to use on their own. They focus on the common mistakes to avoid. So this is looking at that piece around what not to do in the test. The user gets good and not so great examples of responses, lots of explanations as to why, and then counter examples as to what are better responses. And again, lots of extra guidance and tips on skills to master. These are only available with the official guide, so really exclusive if you get this for yourself. And then you have the question bank. So the question bank, again, is exclusive to the official guide. It's designed to mirror the test, so all of the content is authentic. It's taken from real life sources, and they're all designed, all of the activities are designed to show you exactly in the test what you will face. Excuse me. You get 300 brand new questions in this question bank to practice with. So there's no repetition. You won't find these. These are not taken from the test. They're brand new, written for this. You won't find them anywhere else. Really, really quite a good bunch of stuff for your students to practice with. For answers that are correct or incorrect, you get something called smart answer keys. So that shows you a little bit around why your answer was correct or incorrect. And it's not scored, but for speaking and writing, you get sample answers, and the student can go back and listen or read their sample answer again against their response and see how they're doing. And then for the teacher version, so the one that you would get with the teacher's book, you have a grade book as well. So you can assign specific assignments to your students, give them a time limit to do it, and then go in and see their progress. And you can see it by task type across all of the things that you've set. You can see it across the class. We'll go in shortly and have a little look so you can see what that looks like. So let's take a look. I know that you must be eager to see inside. So I'm just going to try share my screen. Oops,
And
I might be sharing the wrong screen. Okay.
looks like we're just about there.
Yeah, I think I've shared the wrong screen. I don't know where it's gone. Sorry, technical difficulty. Bear with me.
No problem. Thanks, Joe. And thank you so much to all of you who have been dropping in questions throughout the session. And thanks, Mel, for answering. We will have allocated time at the end, so think of any other questions that you have, and please feel free to drop them into the chat. We will pick them up.
Seem to have lost my Zoom screen. Sorry, 1 second, guys.
No problem, Joe.
So this is where I understand online teaching and how difficult it is. Right, I should be able to see now.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, is it big enough, or do you need me to make it bigger?
I think we could have it a bit bigger if you can.
Sure. Seems to be getting smaller, which is weird.
Yeah, I think that will do.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So this is the teacher's book. So I'm not going to show you the whole book because, you know, we'd be here for quite a long time. There's a lot of information, but I can show you some key bits around what the teacher gets in the teacher's book. Now, the teacher's book is a version of the student's book. So you see everything that the test taker sees, but it has some extra bits that the student doesn't have. So this is your opening page, and this tells you here all about the book, all of the things that you get. It explains a little bit about how to use it. And then you have a really useful page here on the right, which outlines your digital resources, all of those useful tools and things that you get. And you have the test taker ones, so you know what they have. And then you have the teacher ones and some suggestions as well as to where you might use those or what they're for. So, you know, I know it's a bit small for you now, but that's really, really useful. And that's kind of a whole list of everything that you get in terms of those downloadable resources. So this is not actually the whole book, it's just a couple of sample pages. So you can see here some of the information that you get in the start of the book. And then for each section of the test, you get a whole descriptive section telling you a little bit about scoring, telling you about the task types, what you can expect, that kind of thing. And then for each task type, you get a whole section dedicated to that task type. So this is your first page here. We're looking at describe image task. It kind of describes a little bit in this section about the task, the timing, how it works, kind of technicalities of it. Then you get a list of all the skills that are tested, and the test taker has this. And then this part at the bottom, in the test taker book, they get the points to remember. So it's like little tips on how to manage this task type. But in the teacher's book, you get an extra tip as well. And this is really nice, especially for anybody who doesn't know PTE Academic that well or hasn't taught test prep for it. These are really, really good because they give you a little insight into the test and things that the students might encounter that you might not know if you haven't taken the test. So those are really, really useful. Then we have the main bulk of the task type section, and this is split into two different parts. So here at the top, I don't know if you can see, there's a little icon of a person with a book. And here's a little man who's running. He's not running away from the test. He's running through the book. So the idea is that throughout the book, there's two tracks. One is fast track, which is our little fellow here running quick. And then you have the person with the book who maybe has a bit more time to prepare for the test. And they might go through the things in more detail. So throughout the book, you have these signposts to tell you where these are typically things for people who might want to take longer. The fast track tells you where it's just someone quick who needs the breakdown of the absolute essentials. That's the part that they want to be looking at. So it's really helpful. So in the in-depth part, you get a little bit more information. You get some practice tips of things you can do. Again, these are all aimed at the student, a little bit on scoring. And then during the test, this is a breakdown of while you're doing the task type in the test. So what happens before, during, and after, things that you need to make sure you remember. And again, in the teacher's book, here you get a little signpost of things to remind them to do, things that you can encourage them to do, extra things that you can go to as a teacher to get more information on this task type, all that kind of thing. So again, really key and in situ so you can see it. And then the last page of each task type section is practice. So in the test taker book, you don't get this pink bit, you just get the task. In the teacher version, you do get either a model answer for speaking and writing, or you get the answer key in the book. So you can see it right away. You don't have to go off somewhere else and look for the answer key. So that's really helpful. And the interesting thing about this is that the tasks for each task type, so there's two. There's one on the practice page, and there's a different task on the first page. Both of those tasks are also in the online question bank. So students can either do them on paper in their book, or they can record their answer or do it however they want to. If they just want to do it kind of free with more time. If they're a fast track student and they want to, really bash through things quite a lot quicker, there's some hints there at the top. So it tells them which task it is in the question bank, so they can go straight into the question bank, do it online, get their feedback, all that kind of thing. So really, really helpful. A little reflection here on their practice to see how they're doing. And again, a really detailed signposting at the bottom for the teacher on which specific resources, worksheets, things that we have in the test taker resources and the teacher resources that are helpful at this point for the test taker. And also to mention as well, I forgot to mention that there's a signpost in this test taker book for the video, which is usually on this page. So really, really complete, lots of helpful hints there as you go through. At the end of each section, so speaking, writing, listening, reading, you get a kind of review section. And so you get lots of really juicy tips here on how to build confidence. This is for the test taker, but can be really useful for the teacher actually as well, because it can give you lots of ideas of ways to teach and ideas for lessons. The student gets a speaking checklist, and in addition to this, there's some teacher focused ones that kind of help you evaluate your students as you go through the classes. And again, some more tips, and these tips on the last page are really focused on those other skills. So here you have listening for speaking, note taking, time management, all specific to this section, which is speaking, and really, really helpful. So that should give you an idea of the book, more or less. What I would like to go to now is, I'm going to go to this one, is to show you a little bit of a video. So can you see my video screen, Michelle?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a speaking video. This is one of the common mistakes videos. And I'm just going to play, not all of it, because it's sort of 6 minutes long, but I'll paste some of it so you get an idea of what the videos are about.
Retell lecture.
Oops.
Common mistakes. In Retell lecture, you will hear a talk or watch a video of a talk. After that, you will have 10 seconds to prepare and then 40 seconds to retell what you heard. In Retell lecture tasks, what are some common mistakes to avoid? Ineffective note-taking, unclear delivery of the main ideas. Let's look at these in more detail. Listen to this lecture and then look at the notes. Why are the test takers' notes ineffective?
But I think talking about foods rather than nutrients is an important step we need to take. At the same time, we don't have to say to people, you can eat this or you can't eat that, but we should help give people a wider view of the relative proportions of various food groups and dietary patterns on the whole.
Here's what the test taker wrote. Important to talk about food, biscuits, crisps, food groups. The notes are ineffective because the test taker hasn't focused on the main points of the lecture. Take notes on the main idea of the lecture and any supporting ideas.
Important to talk about food, not nutrients. Don't divide into foods that are allowed and not allowed. Understand diet patterns and proportions.
In the first attempt, the test taker didn't consider the relationships between the main points. Note down how ideas are connected. Use arrows or other linking devices to do so. If you hear a key conclusion or implication, circle or underline it so that you can structure your answer around it.
So I'm going to stop it there because it is quite a long video. I think it's sort of 7 minutes long actually in total, but it gives you an idea of what those videos are about. Really useful, really engaging. You can use little bits of them. You can use the whole video. You can assign parts. You can use it in class. You can use it online. Really, really useful, really engaging. You know, and if it's too fast for some test takers, they can always go back and watch it several times. And I think you'll see there as well how we've tried to build in everything. So it's not just how to do the task type, which for PTE Academic, honestly, doesn't help you do the test. You need to have good English, well-rounded English skills, academic skills, and know how to approach this test in the right way. So I think you'll see there this example of note-taking, how it's telling you lots of different tips and guidance on how to develop those skills in conjunction with your English and answering the task type. It's not one thing, it's the whole combination of everything. So they're really nice. There's one per task type, so lots of material there. And each one is about 4 to 7 minutes long. So you could easily stretch those over a couple of classes if you had a student or a bunch of students who were studying for longer. Sorry, excuse me, I'm getting a bit croaky. Right, we don't have much time left before we go to questions. So I'm just going to move on to show you a little bit about the question bank. So this is our place called Pearson English Portal. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this from anything else that you teach. This is where Pearson in English, all of our courseware sits. So whenever you buy a product and it has bits that come online, this is where you'll go in, put in your access code, and you'll get your products. So you can see I'm very studious. I have lots of products here that I'm studying. So I'm just going to go down to here, which is my official guide. And I'm going to click on that and access my product. So this is where you will get everything that doesn't come in the book. So your audio, your videos, all of those things. So this is the teacher version. The student version looks a little bit different. This is the teacher version. So here you can see, I don't know if I can make this a bit bigger for you. You can see all of the things that you get as a teacher. So you get your access to the question bank, teaching ideas, lesson planning, pop quizzes, worksheet notes, and then student resources. If I go in here, this is everything that the student has in their version. So you have absolute access to everything. You can see here all the different worksheets that they have, the audio and the video that goes with the book, answer key. You have all of the videos, so those common mistakes videos that we were just looking at, speaking resources, which are worksheets, useful language, lots and lots of things. So the test taker has a lot, honestly, but the teacher has double because you have their stuff and yours. So you get access to everything they have. And then you have these other things as well. So we can go in and look at teaching ideas, for example. Let's look at speaking. So there's one of these for each skill type. And this is really, really juicy. Got lots of ideas on it. It's got activities that you can do. It's got things there on time management and task management, how to set study goals with your students. And then per task type, so describe image, retell lecture, all of the task types, you get specific ideas for what to do with the students in class. So really, really helpful. And, you know, again, can be condensed to something you need to do quickly or spread out to be something bigger for students that have more time. So that's that one. I'm not going to go through all the resources because honestly, there's quite a lot. Lesson planning, we can just take a look at this. This is the skills to master. So this is a document that you get with your product, and it's actually really helpful. It outlines to you per task type all of the skills that are tested in PTE Academic, but the key points that you need to focus on with students. So for read aloud task, it tells you everything that is tested. but it also tells you the language points, so pronunciation, using chunking of words, correct sentence stress, intonation. It goes into detail in the language points that you need to cover with your students or that they need to study at home. So again, really, really key, and that helps you a lot with your lesson planning. And then very quickly, I'm just going to go into the question bank because that's the part we haven't seen. So this is your question bank. So if you're going to, so you have here your 4 skills. And then for each skill area, you have your task types. So we're going to go into Retell lecture. Actually, no, we're going to describe image. So you get lots and lots of each task type, 300 questions in total. And this is designed to run as it would run in the exam. So you have the same rubric and question that you have in the test. You get your image that you need to describe. You have your timer up at the top that runs instantly as soon as the task opens. So in this task, you have 40 seconds to look at the picture. And then you have, I think it's another 40 seconds to answer. So once this 40 seconds is up, you'll automatically start recording. If it's recording me. When this is finished, it will unlock the sample answer, which comes below. So you can then listen to a native speaker sample answer at different levels. So from B1 up to C1, there's different levels that appear. And you can compare that to the answer that you gave as many times as you want to. You get tips. So for each task type and task, you get a different tip to help you. And then if you do it, you're not satisfied, you can always press the try again button and start again. Or you can go back to the menu and try something else. So really, really nice. I'm not going to go through lots of different task types because it's quite time consuming. What I will do quickly is show you the teacher grade book that is attached to this. So I have set up here an official guide class. This is my class. Not sure if this class has any students in it. Oh yes, it does. So this is an assignment that I set to my students, which is actually me rather than the students. They're not real students. I did some of the tasks so you could see. So I've only done, I've got it here by first attempt. You can see your results by different things. From the tasks that are assigned, I've only done 1, there's still 1 pending. And you can see lots of different information here. So again, I won't go through it. There'll be a video available for people who buy the course, so you'll be able to learn how to use this and see how it goes. But it's really useful. You can invite your students, you can assign stuff, or they can just practice on their own. Really, really great. So I think that's pretty much it. So just as a reminder, what you get with this is you get your teacher's book and your test taker version. You get your online practice, 300 questions, you get your videos, and you get all of these juicy teacher resources as well. So it really is a complete package, lots and lots of stuff. And honestly, if you're a new teacher to PTA or an experienced teacher, this is really all that you need. There's lots of other things that you can look at to get more information, but if you're starting out, the official guide really is quite a complete place to start. Just as a final shout out, there are some PTE Academic teacher training modules. Mel, I don't know if you want to say something about this.
Sure, I put the link in there. But yeah, thank you so much for that. It's probably the first time I've seen the official guides teacher version in so much depth. So to see a solution that really is sort of one size that fits all, whether you've got students that are going at a slower pace, at a faster pace, whether you want to do this digitally, whether you want a physical book, you know, you've got the practice bank, the videos, all those resources and a grade book. It's kind of mind-blowing. And not only that, it looks beautiful as well. I find myself just looking through the pages because it looks so good. But yeah, we know there's a lot of curiosity before we move to the questions among the teacher community around PTE Academic, wondering why so many test takers are starting to choose this test over other high stakes tests in the market. And we know that you're keen to hear more and get involved and eventually start to support learners with this journey. So as well as this wonderful solution for the classroom that we've talked about today, we've also got the completely free comprehensive set of 6 modules, which is your online teacher training for PTE Academic. For those of you that are interested to get involved, we put the link there. We'll also have it there for you within, I believe, the follow-up email. Go ahead and go to module 1, which is our introduction to PTE Academic and automated scoring. You'll find out everything that you need to know about the test, and then you can take it from there. And if you do start teaching, as you see, we've got everything available for you with this sort of one-stop approach, one size fits all. You've got the guide and the teacher training together. Hopefully that's going to be something that's really going to give you the confidence you need to help your students excel. So I'll hand over to the questions. Thanks so much, Jo.
Excellent. So yeah, time for questions. How should we do this? Shall I just go back through the chat and pick some out?
Yeah, that would be great, Jo.
Is that probably the best way to go? I can see there's quite a few. So somebody was asking there about the ISBN. Actually, the old edition has now been discontinued. So unless it's in a bookshop or somewhere, you can't actually buy that one anymore through us. But I will make sure that we send out the new ISBNs for these ones in your goodie bag, so you get access to those and you can tell which of those are there. In your goodie bag as well, you have access to some flip books. So those sample pages that I showed you, you can go through those in your own time. And if you are interested in showing this to your PLS owner or your course coordinator or someone because you'd like to get their input on whether it's useful for your institution, please do get in touch with your local Pearson rep and they'll be able to get you a code for a temporary access to the ebooks so that you can take those, look at them with your people in your institution or your school and have that way. So please do get in touch if you need one of those. So I'm just going to try and scroll up here and see some of the questions that we had.
Jo, I see there's a question around age groups for the various activities. Could you tell us anything about who the primary audience is?
Yeah, so generally, I mean, this is pretty much just adult oriented. So the test is taken by anybody basically who's 18 plus. This test is not aimed at younger school age children. That would be something like the Pearson English International Certificate, PEIC, or as it was formerly known, PTE General. That's a test that's for younger people, and it's similar in some ways, but it's a different kind of test, and gives you more of a CFR rating on your test. But PTE Academic is aimed at anybody over 18. So really, these activities, most of the activities in the videos are quite simplistic in terms of the language. We made it that way on purpose, so students who have a lower level can still use them, even though some of the authentic content and the answers might be of a higher level. The instructions are quite simple, so really anybody can use those. There's a question here from Angela around, will students have access to the question bank, or do all my students need to have their own student version? Yes, they do need to purchase a student version to have access. So with your teacher version, you can add them to your class and you can assign activities to them, but they will need to buy the test taker version of the official guide in order to get access to the question bank. You get a code with your book, either emailed to you with your ebook or inside your print book, and that's how you get access. So yeah, they would have to have their own version. Thank you guys, there's so many nice comments. This is really nice. Yeah, the access code again, you have to purchase to get your access code. I'm trying to go through, but if you see any questions, Michelle.
I saw an interesting one that I think I'll pose to both Jo and Mel here. We had a question around, should a teacher change teaching style perhaps if a student is struggling? What type of advice can you offer? And also, how might the official guide and the teacher modules lend themselves well to that?
Do you want to take that one, Mel, or should I answer?
Yeah, sure. Certainly, if it would depend, obviously, exactly where your student is struggling. One of the best things that you can do at the beginning of your sort of prep course is do a scored practice test. This way, you're going to determine where their skills of weakness are. Let's say, for example, that you determine that it's perhaps the writing and the listening skills that are weak. You can then go and do those modules, the writing and the listening skills modules that are free on Pearson Advanced with us, which will skill you there and give you lots of activities for that sort of skill building and how to give specific helpful feedback to your learners. And then you can move across to the guide. And if you know that they are the particular areas of weakness, you can do those sections, perhaps take more time over those, spend more time on those activities that are there. There might be something else you want to pull out product-wise, but
No, I think that pretty much sums it up, Mel.
Okay, great.
Great.
Another question, how can I get these materials? A lot of eagerness people to use this. That's great. I'm glad it looks so exciting and engaging for you. Again, I think with the goodie bag, we'll send out a sort of a PDF or something that details where you can get the information, where you can get hold of the ISBNs, all of that in one place so that you can see it. Or we'll try and get that out to you as soon as possible. I think with the links and things, Rochelle, if we can organise that, I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah,
but basically,
fantastic.
you can buy this product on pearsonpte.com. It's available to buy online, or you can buy it from other places as well. So we'll send that information out to you so you have it.
Yeah, and let's also give you the link to our PTE Academic teacher community, and that way you can keep in touch with us and let us know what you think about both the modules and this book. If you're using the guide, if you've I'm going to do some of the demo material that you can get your hands on. Please let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just as a follow-up to that, we are always creating new products and new things for PTE Academic for test takers and teachers. And I particularly am doing a lot of research around what teachers are interested in seeing and having for their classrooms this year. So perhaps with Men, I'll work out a way through that community where we can ask you if you want to get involved in giving feedback on new things that we do, or just looking at some things. That would be really, really helpful if you're interested. Maybe we can set that up at some point and let you know where you can apply for that. That would be really, really great if you're interested.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea, Joe. I see we've had one other question come through here around advice on mixed ability and different age group classes. Anything you'd also want to add to that?
Yeah, well, it's a tricky one because there's no real answer that's solid to that. You may well have classes of people who are studying for PTE Academic who have, as I said in the beginning, very different goal requirements. So people who may just want to take it generally, or people who have a really specific, maybe even high score that they need to get within a very specific amount of time. You may have students who are planning to take it, but may have 2 months or 3 months or 6 months to study. And possibly in the same class, you may have someone, as you mentioned before, one of you who has 2 weeks and that's it, they have to take the test. So there's no real answer, but I think once you get a chance, if you do buy this product and get a chance to delve into it quite deeply, there's so much there that is a tool to help you gather together what are the most basic things. And that whole fast track versus in-depth route throughout the book really makes it clear for the student as well. If you are on fast track and you only have a very limited amount of time, this is what you need to know. If you really want to improve and have longer, this is all the other stuff you can do as well. So there's no hard and fast answer. That's always a tricky one in any course. But I think there's enough tools here for you to be able to manage that effectively.
And can I ask Joe, before we clock off, are we saying then, and I think we are saying, aren't we, that if you are a teacher, obviously some of our teachers will be working in schools with face-to-face sort of large classes or groups of learners who are all going to be taking this test. However, there are going to be a growing number of teachers that might not necessarily be affiliated with the PLS, for example. They might have young children and are doing a little bit of work, freelance work, or working from home, or let's just say working virtually with individual students or small groups, for example. Can the official guide work in all those scenarios as a solution to help learners with test prep in that case? What's the... What is the best way to use this book? What sort of circumstances?
What's the best way to use this? Again, I don't think there's an answer, and this was specifically designed to be so flexible, which is why it's not laid out as a course. It is laid out with all the components, so that you can pick and choose the parts that you want. So my answer would be yes, it would fit all those scenarios. It's just up to the teacher or the institution to decide which bits they use in what order. But that's why it was designed that way, so that it's flexible.
Thank you.
All right, fantastic. We are
and just to add, this can be used in, sorry, Rochelle, this can be used in conjunction with other things as well. So if you have an English course and this, you can have an English course and PTA prep at the same time. It can be a bolt-on to other things as well. Well, thank you, everyone.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And just in summarizing, we will have the certificates of attendance going out via email very shortly. And please watch for the follow-up email, which is due to go out by Friday. In this will include the goodie bag that we've referenced, links to access the resources, access for you to enroll in the teacher modules, and then lastly, where you can sign up to join our teacher community so you can hear about more great events like this. So again, thank you so much, Joe, for that really informative session. It was a really engaging event. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who joined us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.